it's interesting, when you leave those things from the inside, you really don't see them the way people see them out from the outside. From the outside, it's amazing for everybody, etc. From the inside, you might have a different way to think. But not only I found it very interesting and instructive in terms of business moves, but I also think there's some stuff you can take from that story. So in 98 released my first album, 99 second album, 2001ish. I leave the label with Sony, etc. I stay on Sony I stay at Sony Publishing, but I leave out of the rest. And lol. Obrigado. So now, in 2003, I started working with Section Zouk, which was a label that actually captured probably 85% of the market when it comes to zouk music in France and the French West Indies. And at a point, it was not my design, but it was very interesting to work with them and see it from the inside, how the market was completely captured and how we used it to really fascinate the market, but how at a point I really felt like we needed competition. We needed somebody as big as us, because it just became so many conflicts of interest that it was impossible to work in this environment, which is why ultimately I left that label and I also moved to Portugal, because I was like, yeah, the market is disgusting. And I would say it took a good 13 years. And I think we're still in the process, but it took a long time for the market to clean itself from that. But it was fascinating to be inside and to see how the whole market got inside of an iron fist of Section Zouk. And it was great to benefit from it. So I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying how it was. So how do you capture a market like this and completely make it your market and leave only crumbles for the competition? I don't know how they started, but I'm going to give you all the points and how the market was completely surrounded by us at that time. First thing we had was access to the two main radios in Paris, and access to a lot of radios in the West Indies, in Martinique, Guadeloupe, Guyane. And we had people that were working on radios on a payroll, so that whenever we would tell them, hey, this song is the next hit, they would play it so much that it would become number one in the radio, and it would become a hit anyway from those main radio DJs and animators. We had a bunch of people working at radios that were working for their radios, but also working for us. That was first point. Second point, we had the best free managers. I mean, especially one. We had one team of managers that were linked to all the clubs in France and the West Indies. And those people were working with the label, and at the same time they were signing all the artists in a management contract. Then you had to sign publishing if you wanted to be on the label, or if you wanted to be promoted, so that anybody who would be signed to the publishing would be in some compilations like Section Zouk All Star, and then on the compilation that were given to other labels as well, which would generate in exchange, that would generate publishing money, and 50% of that publishing money would come back to the label, and the other would go to the artists. And those who didn't want to sign their publishing, and it was very few. I mean, I was independent and strong enough to not do it, but most people had to do it. And then you had all the supermarkets in Martinique and Guadeloupe playing the music while you're shopping. In exchange, when these supermarkets tell the collecting society, we played this, and this month, we played those songs, the supermarket have to pay the collecting societies, and the collecting societies would pay the artist and the publisher being us. So the money would just do full circle. And imagine that at that point, at that time, the next thing he did was put an iron fist on the market in the West Indies, which means that if you wanted to book the main artist in the label, you had to sit down with him, and he would tell you who you can have, when, and do your calendar with you as booking the shows. So at a point, the whole market, I think we arrived to a monopoly of 85 to 90% of the market at a point. All we didn't do was compilations, CD compilations. And I was saying we should do them, but I don't know, somehow we never went that far. And it was really an interesting moment, because when you're there, I would say the best moment were between 2003, when I did Soumia's album and my album with On Dit Quoi, and maybe 2006. Those were the best 3 years to be part of that system, because when you would release a track, the main personality, the main radio personalities would come to the studio to listen to the song that you knew was a hit. And they would hear it before everybody, and they would be like, yo, and they would go crazy, and you could do the plan with them. And from there, you would do a bunch of shows with the managers that were working at the record company. So it really created a monopolistic environment where you had all the artists, all the publishing, you owned all the masters, and you had deals with all the clubs, and all the managers were working for their artists, but also with you. And at a point, I remember telling everybody, this is a massive, but massive, massive, massive conflict of interest. At a point, I told everybody, yo, listen. And because me, I've always been independent. So the deal I had with them was not a deal of I'm signing with you guys. And my deal was I create my albums and you put them to the market. But because my albums were number one and the artist that was assigned, Sumia, Eligio, Abeshe, were number one as well. So I have the force to just control my destiny, and I own my master from the get-go. And some of them we did 50-50, but at a point I just recuperated everything. But for the rest of the artists, at a point I was like, yo, that's a conflict of interest. Because look, if you have a professional manager, right? And your professional manager is booking you a date somewhere. Let's say somebody wants you in Mexico and they're willing to pay you $5,000 for your show. Or let's take simpler numbers. They're willing to pay you $1,000 for your show. A good manager will tell the people in Mexico, all right, you want such artist, it's gonna cost you $1,000, but you have to give us 50% at the reservation to make sure your date is in the calendar. And if you cancel the date for no serious reason, we keep the 50%. We keep the 50%. And if there's really a cas de force majeure, you have 6 months to book and to pay the other 50% before the show begins. So a good manager will do that to protect you from all these fraudulent promoters. The problem is, at a point, the label started organizing their own tours in the West Indies. So your manager would tell you, hey, you have a show in Guadeloupe, and then if your show got canceled for whatever reason, and they would often tell you, oh, you know, it's bad weather or something. You would tell your manager, okay, where's my 50%? And they would tell you, oh, no, that's for the label. So there's no 50%. It's family. And that's when I started telling artists there's a conflict of interest here. Because not only the management group that was handling probably 80% of the artists in the label, they were in bed with the label. So how can you protect the interests of the artist if you work with the label? That's a conflict of interest. If three girls are competing with each other, even if they are in the same label, don't forget that it was an umbrella label, and then you had all the different labels inside. You had Nicole's Erogen, you had Marvin's label, you had my label Sushiro, you had a Face à Face label, you had and then you had the main label. But let's say you have 5 girls, all of them are in all the 5 different labels, but they all have the same manager. If they are competing with each other and they have the same manager, if one is not willing to perform for whatever price the manager is saying, she can get pressured because they will tell them, hey, the other one wants to do it. Or if your show get canceled in the West Indies and you don't understand why, and you didn't have 50%, but your manager is also working with the person who now has a show on the same date as you, when it's supposed to be because of the weather, it means that you've been exchanged, or somebody applied pressure, because then they start to be a lot of little clans because there's a lot of money coming in. And that's exactly what happened. It started being full of clans, and the label started to participate in their favorites and just not help the rest. And this, yeah, listen, a pure exploitation, bro. And I remember sitting down with two artists and telling them, listen, your manager is also the manager of this girl that is sitting with us. So it was two girls, famous, both of them. I told them, listen, your manager, you guys, you both have the same manager or the same management team. Those people are also managing this guy who's your ex, and this guy, this girl who's his actual girlfriend, and this girl who's another ex-girlfriend, and all three of you are in competition because you are all doing the same thing. And whenever your shows are canceled, you don't get 50%. So you can prepare, you can do your plans for the summer because somebody told you you're gonna have 8 shows, you're gonna get like, let's say 1,000 per show. So you said, okay, I'm gonna make 8K, I'm gonna pay half of my rent, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, then I'm gonna go on holidays, etc. And they can call you 2 days before the tour begins to tell you it's canceled. And you don't have compensation because the show is organized by your manager and your label. That's a conflict of interest. And it's even worse if somebody tells you, I'm sorry, your song cannot play on the radio this summer because they only take big artists this summer. And then another label that's inside of, another sub-label that's inside of the whole umbrella, they have 3 new artists that just started and they're playing on the radio. And you're like, wait a minute, I thought it's only new artists. And then you start realizing that there's some favorites and that the label is not being fair to everybody because, yeah, some people, they want to play the dirty game. And so I talked with these girls, explained to them my vision of the whole thing and how I believe that they should try to get themselves some new management. Not because I had a problem with the management, just because of the conflicts of interest. And I was telling them you should have somebody that is exterior to the label and that will help you do this and that. And the first thing they did was send them to the West Indies to a free show where they went, of course, and then work their mind to remove from the hard drives everything I said. Because my point of view of protecting artists was way too dangerous for the business. And they called me and they told me, Kay, stop trying to fuck up the business. I was like, no, I'm explaining to artists how they're supposed to run the business if they want to have longevity in this business. And you guys, Feliz Noite, and you guys are here telling me that I'm a problem for the business. No, you guys should handle your business in a way that artists feel protected and they feel at home, safe, not where they have to play le jeu des chaises musicales and there's only like 5 chairs and it's 30 of them. And then it's always the same people that are going to the West Indies and you don't take some new people. And at that point, I remember I signed Mika Mendes. I was doing the second album of Looney Johnson and all they were telling me were like, yeah, we want to go to the West Indies. We want to go there because we also want to feel the force of Section Zouk behind us. But because we were not part of that little mafia that was being done, they never went. And it felt bad for me because now they were looking at me funny. Oh, we thought you had power. but actually you don't. And at a point, I sat down with the owner of the label, who was my partner at the time, and I told him, bro, you are about to implode, to make your business implode, because you are betting on the wrong horses, first of all, and you are making a ton of enemies because of the way you are handling the business, because you feel almighty and powerful. And there's a lot of artists that, because they're not part of the label, because they're not part of the management, and because they're not signed to you, or they don't give you publishing, because you have deals with all the clubs, you are preventing them from singing, from doing their job, from doing what they love, which is performing. And you are making it political, because they were telling people, hey, if you take this artist, well, you will not have that one. And that one was the number one selling artist, the top one. So, or you want to take let me not say names. And they were starting to put this type of pressure on promoters as well, on clubs, on people who were doing parties. They were telling them, hey, this summer, you cannot take this person because she's not one of us. And me, I was looking at them. I remember I was like, yo, like, since when did we become that? Since when you want to decide who performs or not? And he was like, no, I'm not deciding. I'm saying, no, that's what you're doing in front of me. You are trying to tell those people that they cannot have people that are outside of the label perform in their club. And you're threatening them using the fact that you have the top 10 artists. When there's nobody, you can let other people play. They didn't want to know. What happened was that after I had the conversation, he told the people, listen, you can play. Yeah, it's okay. Let them play. Let them do the show. Pay them whatever you want to pay. It's all good. But you know what he did? In a geography, it's an island. So let's say there's a show in a club called L'Impératrice or whatever. Listen, there's a club is here and there's a show here. He would take all the other artists and he would call the 5 clubs that surround the place where you're performing, and he would send his artists sing for free, because they're here on holiday anyway. So they were like, hey, go sing a song, each of you, in 2 or 3 songs in the 5 clubs surrounding this area. Why? So that it could destroy anybody. Let's say there's supposed to be 300 people going to this club. Now, if you have 5 clubs with your different favorite artists performing all around, maybe 50 people will go here, 50 will go there, 20 will go there, and all of a sudden, instead of having the 300 people that you were supposed to have, you only have 75 people in your show. So it looks empty, it's not good for the photos, and the club might say, we're sorry, we can't pay you. And that's what they started doing to everybody who was not agreeing with them. And me, I was like, yo, you guys are about to destroy the whole ecosystem that you built, because now you are using it against art and artists. You are not using it for the benefit of everybody. And yeah, listen, it's your label, it's your thing, so yeah, you have to use it for us first, but then it doesn't mean that anybody that is not in the label cannot perform. And that's when I said to myself, we need to have another huge label that would take, let's say we have 85%, we should go from 85% to maybe, 45% market share, and have this other label have 40% or 30% of market share, so that artists that are in our camp or not in our camp, they can choose between this place and that place. And if we equally powerful, now the business can be healthy, because the artists always have the choice to go to another label if they're not happy. Because what happened here was that there was a lot of women, especially women, that felt exploited, and there was a lot of women that felt like they felt that they could not complain, because if the management has 10 artists and all these 10 girls are your competition, if you complain about something, well, we can use any one of the other 9 if you don't want to do it. No, it's not that I don't want to do it. It's just that I would need to have this and that, and I cannot sleep in this type of hotel and that. Oh, well, such and such can. And now you're pressured because you need to pay your rent. So you have to go do these small shows in a lot of places where you don't want to go for very small amount of money, because you are now saturating the market, and you all going, and you all want to go every summer, and you all want to go in December. You all want to go all the time, and you don't leave the space for the younger, the new people that are coming after you, because you want to keep the market for yourself. But what you don't realize is at a point you have to go back to the studio to make more new music. So while you're in the studio, let the new kids go, or one of you go to, to attract the population, and you bring 2-3 new acts with you, and then those people become bigger, and then while you're there, the rest of the big artists are in the studio working. So when they're done working, they can go and present their new work. But no, you're obsessed with being here so much that you don't work on new stuff. And I signed AC Jordan to my label around 2006 or 2007, I don't remember. Working on his album. And as I'm working on his album, I have one single that is really working on the radios. So I tell the guys from the label, especially the owner, because I wasn't speaking to number 2. I was speaking between bosses. So I tell the guy, listen, I need my guy to go to the West Indies this summer. He doesn't need to be paid for the shows. I just want him to be seen. I want him to, whenever you have some shows that you sold, whatever, have him perform one song, that new song, with the rest of everybody. Like, can we take him on tour? And I would love to have his song play on the radio. And you know what happened? At that time, there were 2 artists that were on the top, and it was mostly girls, but there were 2 guys. And those guys, they went and they pressured the owner of the label, because they didn't want a 3rd guy. They were happy with their duopoly. I'm Apple, you Google. We don't need fucking Microsoft. Or I'm Instagram, I'm Twitter. We don't want TikTok to come play. That's exactly what happened. And they put pressure so that AC's song would never go on the radio, and that at the same time he wouldn't go, because they didn't want competition. And I was like, okay, that's when I told all my artists, all right, listen, my time here is done. 2007, that's when I stopped performing in the West Indies, because there was no market for me. I was not interested in getting paid the prices people were wanting to pay. And I was like, okay, I'm about to be out of this label. And I think I was out around 2009 or 10, because I take my time. I prepare myself. But 2009, 2010, all my masters, took everything and started working on the internet only. And all these people were laughing. All of them. I fell off. La, la, la. Yeah, yeah. And I started working on this YouTube channel seriously. I started making money from that YouTube channel. I was making enough money from that channel to pay my rent and enough money from iTunes sales to live a decent life, and then a few shows, and I was good. But all these people, they were happy because, yeah, one less. And me, I was like, yo, I'm leaving you guys on the Titanic as I'm going straight forward. And you know what happened? After, probably 2012 or 13, or maybe before, I don't remember the timeline, the whole label imploded. Because all the little mafia, they started infighting inside of the label. And because they were enabled by the people who were putting money on top of all these monkeys. And that's when the whole zouk monopoly turned into zouk nightmare. And I learned a lot from that. And I had a conversation today with a guy who was the biggest label of he was the top label of Portugal like 2 years ago. And I remember 2 years ago, I was telling him, be careful, this. And he was listening to me, but he was like, yeah, right. I can do it better than him because whatever. That's what they all think. And you know what happened? Today, the first thing he told me was, bro, everything you said 2 years ago is resonating in my head. I was like, yeah, been there, done that. And what I learned from this experience is that it is very important to have, to always have, I would say, to always have a real competition. It's always important. Not only it gives you drive, but then the fact that they will try stuff that you might not have tried will make you want to try stuff as well. You know, when I look at my stats on Spotify for artists and other platforms, once I checked all my stuff, I also look at the stats of different artists just to see where I am in terms of stream numbers compared to some people. And some people, I remember last year or 2 years ago, I was looking at them and they were doing like 3 million stream a month. And I was like, yo, 3 million stream a month. I want to get there. But I was like, okay, I'm far from there because I was making, 600,000 stream a month. I was like, yo, listen, I got to multiply and work. And listen, with what's happening with something going on and etc., I'm now at 1.4 million stream a month. So if I double, I'm reaching some artists that I've been seeing in my objective as a friendly competition. It's not like I want to be in front of them. It has nothing to do with that. It's just that sometimes you need the competition to drive you. If Apple didn't have Google to compete with them, they would be a little tyrannic with their designs, with the way and the operating system and whatever. If Instagram didn't have Twitter or TikTok, those people wouldn't innovate because they would be like, yeah, everything is fine. So I think it's very important, and I learned that really from that. The zouk industry at a point had one big player and then a lot of small players. It really lacked another one or two big players to divide the market, 33% for you, 35% for you, and whatever is left for you. And I believe that would have been a healthy competition, because if an artist can leave your label to go to the competition, that's when you're scared to leave your artist. So you treat them well. But if you know that if an artist leaves your label, not only there's nowhere to go, but also you can block him from performing in the islands where the money is made in the summer. And you can call all the clubs that you work with in France and tell them, hey, if you work with that guy, you don't work with us. And that becomes dangerous for art itself. And that's exactly how I felt about it. And I told them all the time, I said, guys, be careful, this, that. And they were like, bro, listen, let's just exploit all these people. I was like, no, that's not what we're supposed to do. And I might be a CEO, I might be a businessman, but I'm an artist too. And some of these artists, I launched their careers. So I feel responsible for what's going on next for them. And the way you are conducting it doesn't make sense. But at the same time, all these artists were so driven by their egos that everything I said, the artists didn't care about it. Didn't care about it. They were just like, yeah, oh, let's go do these free shows so we can exist and be there. Because everybody just wanted to exist. When me, I was like, no, we have to have a business plan and we have to work today for in 10 years in your career. I want you in 10 years to make at least 2,000 every month from your catalog. Because I want you at a point to, I own your catalog now, but I want you that maybe the next album I do it, but then the next singles and your presence online becomes yours. Like you own your singles, you do, even if I can record for you, but you have to start having your own catalog because I believe in the power of catalog. And when I was telling this to people in 2007, they were looking at me like, what is this guy talking about? I just want to go do shows because all these other girls are there and I want to be there. And me, I was like, no, listen, if you have your own catalog, then you don't need shows. But I was driven by vision. They were driven by ego. And this changed everything. And that's how that label died.